Free agency winners. I think the biggest winner of free agency is the Tennessee Titans. Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott, I think, are just such perfect scheme fits for this Bob Saleh defense because they don't run a lot of man-to-man coverage, and that's where Alontae Taylor and Cordell Flott get exposed. Alontae Taylor had like the worst passer rating allowed when targeted in 2024. They're both speedy, rangy players that can make plays on the football, not to mention what the Titans have done on the interior of that defensive line after trading away Devondre Sweat. They bring in a guy in John Franklin Myers, who's one of the best run defenders in the NFL and an underrated bull rusher when it comes to getting after the quarterback at a pretty decent price. He's got some of the longest arms out of any defensive lineman in the sport. You pair him with Jermaine Johnson and you pair him with Jeffrey Simmons, who's coming off an all-pro season. They have one of the best defensive lines in the sport. And then Wan'Dale Robinson on the other side, a safety blanket for Cam Ward and a really good route runner in a wide receiver room that had zero separation ability with Shamire Dike, Calvin Ridley, and Elike Omener. So I think the Titans absolutely cooked, and I don't think that they're done just yet. Shout out Bob Saleh. Shout out Brian Dable. Also, you pair up Wan'Dale Robinson back with Brian Dable. I think that says so much about how much confidence they have in Wan'Dale Robinson because a lot of his contract was incentive based. Like it's like only $35 million guaranteed, but it's a $70 million contract. So if he produces, the contract is worth it. If he doesn't produce, which is highly unlikely, he's going to be the wide receiver one there unless they draft a receiver um um unless they draft a receiver at 5 or 6 or wherever they have a draft. But I still think they're not done defensively in the draft. I think they could still go with a Ruben Bain, a Sonny Styles, a Caleb Downs. Bob Saleh is a defensive head coach, so keep an eye on the Titans. I think they're at 5 or 6 in the draft. They could still go. They could still go linebacker. They could still go safety. Their cornerback room, I think, is situated now with Flott, Taylor, and they still have L'Jarius Sneed. Don't forget about that guy. Another winner. I think this team cleaned house in day one of free agency, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rico Dowdle, Michael Pittman, Jamel Dean. Jamel Dean was the number one corner in free agency. They finally, I thought Omar Khan was allergic to the wide receiver 2 position. I just thought he hated wide receivers. They finally get a running mate for whatever the wide receiver 1 is there. And now it's DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman, Rico Dowdle, Jalen Warren. And now you have a defense with Jamel Dean and Joey Porter Jr. I think that's a top 5 CB duo in the league. As long as Jamel Dean can stay on the field, the dude has bricks for hands, but he's always in the right position. He always gets his head around and finds the football. He's really sticky in coverage. He has good instincts. Jamel Dean is a stud. Joey Porter Jr. is coming off the best season of his career. You have Patrick Queen. You have Peyton Wilson. You have Alex Highsmith. You drafted Derek Harmon. You have TJ Watt. This defensive line is solid. This front 7 is solid. Their biggest weakness was the secondary. They lose James Pierre, but they bring in a guy now in Jamel Dean to pair up with Joey Porter Jr. That is just nasty. That is just nasty. The Steelers are unironically a quarterback away if they could sign some interior offensive lineman. And I think a sneaky great signing this offseason or this in day one of free agency was Isaac Seumalo to the Arizona Cardinals. Don't look now, but the Cardinals offense, I think, has a top 5 group of pass catchers with Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and Marvin Harrison Jr. They have a great offensive line now with Isaiah Seumalo, who was top 5 in pass block win rate a year ago, top 5 in run block win rate a year ago. And they have Paris Johnson. They have good players on that offense. They're just a quarterback away. They're leaning. I saw a report today where they're going to stick with Jacoby Brissett. Not quite sure if that's the move here in Arizona. Not quite sure if that's the move. I don't know if that's a tank play to try and make a play at one of these quarterbacks in next year's draft, in the 2027 draft class, which keep in mind, a freaking phone call in the middle. Keep in mind, chat. Keep in mind, there is a bunch of this quarterback class in 2027 is loaded. Okay, Sam Levitt, Jordan Mailata, Dante Moore, Arch Manning, Julian Sayin, Marcel Reed if he develops. Like, there's so many guys that come out of the woodwork too every single year. Like, nobody had Fernando Mendoza going number 1 overall this year, right? So keep an eye out on the next year's draft class. I think a lot of teams, like the Jets, are a team that were really busy today, but they just did not address the quarterback position. And there's rumors circulating, like, is it going to be Geno Smith? Is it going to be Carson Wentz? I'm okay with that. Certify and lock down a bad quarterback so we can be picking in the top 5 next year and get a guy. Julian Sayin's my QB1 in the 27 class with Arch Manning right behind him. Jordan Mailata, Marcel Reed, I think, have really high upside. I'm not done with Sam Levitt either. So either way, if the Jets sign, or like the Falcons with Michael Penix and Tua Tagovailoa, the QB battle of despair and doom this offseason, they're still going to be able, if they stink, if they don't have a quarterback, to have an early pick next year and attack this loaded class. And I think a lot of teams that have needs at the quarterback position after Malik Willis was off the board understood, okay, We're not going to reach on a quarterback in this year's draft. Let's just get a stopgap. If it works, it works. Especially, I think the Falcons did this especially. If it works, it works. Whatever. If it doesn't, we got a good pick next year. We're going to stink because we don't have a good quarterback, and we'll attack next year's free agency class. The Steelers could fall into that category, but what a day one to free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They get a wide receiver too in Michael Pittman. Finally, Omar Khan addresses the biggest need at this position. This team has had, this offense has had for the last 5 seasons. Not only that, but their biggest weakness defensively was defensive back. They were getting cooked in the secondary. They get Jamel Dean to pair up with Joey Porter Jr. They have a great front seven, a young front seven too, TJ Watt aside, like Nate Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Derek Harmon, Peyton Wilson, Patrick Queen. This Steelers defense is going to be a real problem next year. And if they bring back Aaron Rodgers, I think Ty Simpson at 20 would be perfect so that he can sit for a year or two. Well, probably a year, because who knows what Aaron Rodgers does. He does the same shenanigans every offseason. But allow Ty Simpson to sit for at least a year behind Aaron Rodgers as he operates this offense with 2 good weapons now, a good running back in Rico Dowdle, a good running back in Jalen Warren. I think the Steelers knocked day one out of the park here, ladies and gentlemen. The Commanders had a day, and I thought they were going to be quiet. They didn't make a lot of noise early on. I was like, what are we doing? We got $90 million in cap space. We got J.D. Daniels on a rookie contract. Let's get after it. And then boom, Odafe Owe for $5 million per year cheaper than Jalen Phillips, even though Odafe Owe is a way better edge rusher. Jalen Phillips is better at setting the edge in run fit, but Odafe Owe is still a good run defender, better than a lot of media heads were giving him credit for. He was 22.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons, including the playoffs. Top 11 in pass rush win rate over the last 2 seasons. You're pairing up Odafe Owe now with Dorrance Armstrong. You signed Tim Settle. You have Daron Payne. This is all of a sudden a pretty decent Commanders defensive line, and I think they did nail some picks in the secondary. Trey Amos had a pretty good rookie year when he was on the field. Mikey Sanders had a pretty good rookie year and followed up with a pretty solid year too. They could use another corner. I don't know. I think they signed Amik Roberts. I don't know if that's the answer at CB2 because Mikey likes to play in the slot. They could use some safeties as well. But the Commanders getting Odafe Owe, I love that move for them. There still are some corners that they can attack on the market. There's still some linebackers available. Keep an eye out for Devin Lloyd. If he's not signed by the time you're watching this, keep an eye out for Devin Lloyd for the Washington Commanders because they desperately need a linebacker. But what a day for the Commanders. They got the best edge rusher on the market for $5 million cheaper than Jalen Phillips. What a move. And the Bears could still do a lot more, but I think they won day one because they replaced a need in the back end of their defense. They lost Kevin Byard. They lost Brisker. They lost Nashawn Wright. This team led the NFL in turnovers last year. That's half of their turnovers hitting free agency. See ya. What do? They bring in the best safety on the market in Kobe Bryant. They're also losing Tremaine Edmonds. What do? They bring in a really serviceable Devin Bush on a very, very team-friendly deal at a position that's the least valuable on the defense. Like, if you have a Fred Warner, if you have a Roquan Smith, it obviously is nasty. It obviously helps. You'd rather have an elite middle linebacker than not, but would you rather have an elite edge rusher? Like, could they be saving up to take a swing at Trey Hendrickson here? Would you rather have an elite corner? Would you rather have an elite middle linebacker? That's why we'll get into a team momentarily that I think everybody's glazing, but they did nothing. So those are some winners. We'll talk about some. I don't think the Dolphins won the day, even though Malik Willis was my number 1 free agent, because I don't trust the Dolphins to be able to develop him. And we'll get into him later. We'll get into the Panthers. We'll get into the Giants, who I think had a really sneaky good day, but they still have a lot of holes that they need to address. Let's get into the losers, okay? The New England Patriots are absolutely the losers of day one of NFL free agency. Hopefully they're looking to swing at Trey Hendrickson or a Devin Lloyd or somebody in the secondary, but the Patriots need to do something. This is what the Patriots do after their 23-year-old quarterback finishes number 2 in MVP voting. They cut his wide receiver 1. That's what they did to help him this offseason. They cut his wide receiver 1. What are they doing? Wake up, Vrabel. You got lucky. It was the luckiest playoff run we've ever seen. They got exposed in the Super Bowl. They had the easiest schedule of a playoff team in the history of the sport. And what are they doing on day one of free agency? Absolutely nothing. Their offense has gotten worse since the Super Bowl. An offense that averaged 14 points per game against top 10 scoring defenses last season. So the Patriots need to do something, whether that's a Trey Hendrickson, whether it's a Romeo Doubs, whether it's a Chigo Okonkwo, whether it's a Joel Bitonio. The Patriots need to do something. Their offensive line stinks. They have no wide receivers. Kayshon Boutte and Kyle Williams are guys that I think are better than a lot of people give them credit for. That would still be the worst receiving room in the NFL. besides maybe the Raiders, but at least the Raiders have Brock Bowers. The Patriots are big losers on day one. 23-year-old, second in MVP voting quarterback. And what did you do this offseason to help him? You cut his leading receiver. He's throwing the ball to Kayshon Boutte and Kyle Williams behind a garbage offensive line. Garbage. And they're picking 31st in the draft. They are a joke. They don't know what they're doing. This is an offense that averaged 14 points per game in the playoffs. That one of the luckiest playoff runs in the Super Bowl era. Easiest schedule of a playoff team this century. Their offense got exposed in the playoffs against good defenses, and they made it worse. They made it worse. They cut Stephon Diggs. They better be gearing up to make some type of move, whether it's A.J. Brown, whether it's Romeo Doubs, whether it's Trey Hendrickson. What are the Patriots doing? Big losers on day one. Huge, huge losers. And the Raiders, man. Why is everybody glazing the Raiders offseason? Everybody's on their knees for the Raiders after day one of free agency. They spent $75 million on off-ball linebackers. They overpaid Nakobe Dean. They overpaid Quay Walker. They overpaid Tyler Linderbaum by $9 million per year. He's getting paid $9 million more per year than Creed Humphrey is. Creed Humphrey's a way better center than Tyler Linderbaum. They still have 3 holes on the offensive line. Jackson Powers-Johnson stinks. They don't have a right tackle. Colton Miller's the only other good player on the offensive line. Their receiving core is Jack Beck, Trey Tucker, and Jalen Nailor. Their best cover corner is Eric Stokes. The guys they have rushing the passer are Malcolm Kuntz and Kwity Paye. The Raiders are still garbage. They're still, on paper, one of the worst teams in the NFL, and they allocated all their financial assets into the least valuable position on the defense. Your off-ball linebacker. $75 million on Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker? Like, they're good players. That's an overpay. $29 million for a center? Making him the highest paid interior offensive lineman by $9 million per year. The Raiders are a joke. You don't rebuild through free agency. You rebuild through the draft. Who is Mendoza throwing the ball to? Brock Bowers. That's it. Their offensive line's still going to stink. Tyler Linderbaum doesn't just fix the other 5 positions. He helps. He's a really good player. But the price they gave him, the price tag they gave Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, the Raiders stink. They don't know what they're doing. You don't rebuild through free agency. You rebuild through the draft. So they made a really good move in trading Max Crosby. All of that's out the window because they allocated their money horribly. I don't think this free agency class is going to age well in Vegas, and I think everybody needs to stop glazing them because they did not do good today. You don't rebuild through free agency. You don't spend $75 million on off-ball linebackers when your edge rushers are Malcolm Kuntz and Kwity Paye, when you don't have an interior defensive line presence, when you don't have a good corner. Your best corner, your safeties are Jeremy Chinn and Jamal Adams. Is this Madden 20? Is this Madden 19? What are the Raiders doing? Like, why are we acting like the Raiders cook? Because there's a bunch of names when you type in on Twitter, Raiders free agency signing. You see 10 names, you think, oh, yeah, they're good. No, bro. Malcolm Kuntz stinks. She stinks. That's their best edge rusher. Kwity Paye, washed. What has he done? What are we talking about? They don't have an interior defensive lineman. They don't have corners. They don't have receivers. They have 2 good offensive linemen. Mendoza's going to get killed. Like, get ready to see Brock Bowers back shoulder fade on repeat, man. The Raiders did not do good today. Those are my only losers, really. Oh, no, the Saints. The Saints are a joke. The Saints were bottom of the barrel in cap space. They didn't have a lot of money that they can rework. Chris Olave is coming off a second-team All-Pro. That guy needs to get paid. They're losing their leading tackler, their leader in sacks, their second leading tackler, and their second leader in pass breakups. And how did they replace those guys? By signing a running back and a guard. To be fair, they might have one of the best offensive lines in the league next year, unironically. Who's playing defense? It's Kool-Aid McKinstry, Chase Young, and Prey for the New Orleans Saints. I have no idea what their plan was. Maybe Alvin Kamara has 1 foot out of the door and they know this, so they go with ETN. I would rather pay Kenneth Gainwell $6 million a year than give Travis Etienne a single dollar. And they gave him $4 million more per year. So I don't understand what the Saints are doing. I think their offensive line is going to be really good. Their wide receiver 2 is Devon Vele, and their defense is garbage. It's Kool-Aid McKinstry, Chase Young, and Prey. And I'm not saying they should have re-signed Demario Davis and re-signed Cameron Jordan and re-signed Alontae Taylor, but at least find their replacements. You can't draft 3 replacements. I'd be shocked if they did. So I have no idea what the Saints were doing today. They were ultimate losers. You don't pay a running back in free agency if your roster is not Super Bowl ready. That's why I love Kenneth Walker to the Chiefs, because as long as you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be contending for Super Bowls. That's why I hate Travis Etienne to the Saints. They have so many holes defensively, and they went out and paid a running back when they have Alvin Kamara in the building. Whether Alvin Kamara planned to leave or not, I don't know. Maybe that was part of the reasoning, part of the logic, but I'd rather ride with Kendre Miller and Devin Neal and pay a Jamel Dean and pay a Kobe Bryant and pay a Nakobe Dean. Like, pay a defender. Like, the defense is going to be awful. And the defense took steps next year, but it was really reliant on 37-year-olds and 36-year-olds. But at least find ways to replace those guys. But you didn't. And now there's holes in your defense. But don't worry, you got Alvin Kamara and Travis Etienne. That'll be fine. I will say, though, the offensive line in New Orleans is looking disgusting. There's no holes. Talise Fuaga, dog. Cesar Ruiz, dog. Kelvin Banks, dog. The guy they just signed from Buffalo, dog. They've got a really, really strong offensive line there in New Orleans. And I think their offense will be really good. And I am a Tyler Shough believer. All right, let's talk about the New York Jets. I'm seeing a lot of Jets fans like glazing this offseason. Let's relax here, okay? Minkah Fitzpatrick's a good player. He's not what he was. But again, we needed some type of playmaker in the back end. So he's an upgrade. Joseph Ossai, Kingsley Enagbare, and David Onyemata, good run defenders. Like, from what the Jets have done this free agency, it seems like we're not going to let teams run on us anymore. And we're going to get a free safety we can throw in a deep half, and he can cover, and he can be rangy, and he can maybe create a few turnovers. But some Jets fans are acting like this defense is going to be bad. The defense is still going to be bad. Like, they're not rushing the passer. Who is rushing the passer? And Will McDonald now, I will say this. Kingsley Enagbare, Joseph Ossai, free up Will McDonald where he doesn't have to be on the field for run snaps, and you can free him up just in passing situations and get him with fresh legs consistently. T'Vondre Sweat's a dog. He's going to eat up blocks in the interior with David Onyemata. I think the defensive line is going to be really good. I think they're going to be able to stop the run, especially with the additions of Demario Davis and Minkah Fitzpatrick. But what is most important about this Jets offseason and what they did in day one of free agency is they brought in some veteran presence. Like, they have 5 first-round picks over the next 2 years, which means they're going to have an influx of young players. It's really important if you're trying to establish a culture that you have good guys leading those rooms where you have the young players. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Demario Davis, and the edge rushers they did bring in, Joseph Ossai, Kingsley Enagbare, and they traded for T'Vondre Sweat, and they bring in David Onyemata. They're going to be a really good run defending team. They should be anyway, with Demario Davis, Jamin Sherwood, and that front 7 now. And these edge rushers free up Will McDonald to really only be in on pass downs where he can pin his ears back and get after a passer, do what he does best, and that is rush the passer. So I like the moves the Jets have made, but the defense is still going to be bad. They don't have corners. They just don't. So, but I like the moves that they have made. No great pass rushers, emphasis on run defense and leadership with Demario Davis and Minkah. The Panthers signing Jaelan Phillips to $30 million a year is just a ridiculous contract. Very risky, very high reward, though, because if Jaelan Phillips can be a 10-sack guy, he's worth $30 million a year because he's also one of the best run defenders at the edge position in the NFL. And this Panthers defense, 2024, historically bad against the run. They get Derek Brown back this year. They were way better against the run. They get Jaelan Phillips now. If he can stay healthy and be an 8 to 10 sack guy, contract worth it, they'll have one of the best run defenses in the NFL, and they have a really good secondary behind them with Trayvon Moehrig, J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson. I think the Panthers are in a really, really good spot. But this Jaelan Phillips, the guy medically retired at one point. So this $30 million a year, that could blow up in their face pretty quickly. I just want to make sure. Oh my, and they just signed Devin Lloyd. The Panthers just signed Devin Lloyd as I'm recording this. I'm also live on TikTok as I'm recording this. Just signed Devin Lloyd. What a move for the Carolina Panthers. Live on the podcast, signing Devin Lloyd. The Panthers are cooking a little bit. They're being a little bit aggressive. I'm interested to see what the money is. But Jaelan Phillips for $30 million. Devin Lloyd's not going to be a cheap asset. As I'm reading this, I don't know I don't know what the contract is. But now, all of a sudden, they might have one of the best run defenses in the NFL. They have a really good secondary in the back end with Mike Jackson, who's one of the most underrated corners in football. Go ask Matthew Stafford. They have J.C. Horn, who's the top 5 to 8 corner in the league as well. Trayvon Moehrig is a good safety. They have good pass rushers now. They could use another guy on the edge with Jaelan Phillips, like a rotational pass rusher type of guy. Derek Brown's one of the best defensive tackles in the sport. Offensively, the Panthers, Ike Ekwonu, Taylor Moton, one of the most underrated tackle tandems in the league. They do need a center because they just lost Cade Mays. They could use another running back because they only have Chuba Hubbard right now. But I think Ted McMillan year 2, Jalen Coker year 3, Jatavion Sanders maybe takes a step. This Panthers team could contend if Bryce Young is really that guy and he continues to ascend a little bit like he has under Dave Canales. What a day. Add the Panthers to the list of winners for day one. I don't care that they might have overpaid. I don't care that they might have overpaid for Jaelan Phillips. The Panthers are dialed here. They're locked in. What a move. Devin Lloyd. Unbelievable. 3 years, $45 million. Someone do the math. Chat, what is 45 divided by 3? What is that on a per year basis? 45 divided by 3. Can you move? Sorry. I'm recording a podcast here. $15 million. That is a great okay. They overpaid for Jaelan Phillips and they got Devin Lloyd on a discount. At least Spotrac had Devin Lloyd valued at like $17 million, $18 million per year. So good contract with Devin Lloyd, who was the best linebacker in football last year. Honestly, he was incredible. Jaelan Phillips, 4-year, $120 million. That's definitely an overpay. But you look at how far this Panthers defense has come from 2024. They might be, unironically, one of the best units in the NFL next season. They really might. Like, they have a lockdown corner. They have one of the best defensive tackles in the sport. They have an all-pro linebacker now. Jaelan Phillips can be a top 15 edge rusher in the league. He was top 5 in pressures since week 5 or something, although that stat means nothing to me, really. I mean, he was good for 10 games. Sick. His most productive year, he got hurt. Can he stay healthy? He had to medically retire at one point. But either way, the Panthers, I think, are doing what they should do while they have Bryce Young on a lucrative or on a cheap deal with his 5th-year option for one more season. So shout out the Panthers. The Giants had a good day. I think the Giants had a good day. Tremaine Edmonds, they lost Bobby Okereke. They released Bobby Okereke. They release Micah McFadden. Tremaine Edmonds is a terrific run defender. The Giants' run defense was awful. They also signed Isaiah Likely, who is a real threat vertically. They lose Wan'Dale Robinson, but they gain Isaiah Likely, 2 different type of players. Like, I don't think Likely's ever going to be a possession type of tight end, like a Travis Kelce or like a Trey McBride, where he's going to be a chain mover. But he does offer you a vertical threat. He reminds me a little bit of Vernon Davis. You guys remember Vernon Davis? Where he's got to get upfield, and when you get the ball in his hands, look out. He can also moss you. And that's a good weapon for Jackson Dart to have. People are forgetting just how nasty Malik Neighbors is. And look out for the Giants now to add Sonny Styles next to Tremaine Edmonds or a Caleb Downs in that secondary. They could still use a corner or two. They lost Cordell Flott. Their corners right now are Paulson Adebo, Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips. Not ideal. They could still use some help in the back end. Caleb Downs fixes that a lot. So the Giants had a good day as well. Mike Evans signed a 3-year contract worth $42 million with incentives to earn way more. So when I first saw this contract, it was like 3 years, $60 million. I'm like, that is just ridiculous. Only $16 million guaranteed. I got to move out of the way so my chat can read this list here. I haven't interacted with the chat in a minute. I'll be back in about 10 minutes, chat. So Mike Evans, good contract. Once I really saw how it was broken down, at first I'm like, why are we paying Mike Evans $20 million a year for 3 years when he's 31 years old, has not played a fully healthy season since 2023, and is coming off a career low in yards per reception? But either way, Mike Evans, you pair him up Ricky Pearsall, very complimentary stuff. And then obviously you have George Kittle, CMC out of the backfield. Trent Williams is still concerning. I don't know what the deal is with him. If the Niners lose Trent Williams, they're a completely different offense. He's the best left tackle in the sport. Yeah, I think the Chiefs did good today. I think what else happened today, chat? Who else should I talk about? JT with the follow. Thank you, Jay Loveguard. What'll go? Linderbaum, Raiders, overpay. I think I talked about everybody. Some of the best free agents still available. I'm not sure. I think it's... what's my list? Best free... Kyler Murray, Trey Hendrickson still on the board. Devin Lloyd's off the board. Rasheed Walker's still on the board. I think the Lions signed Cade Mays today. Keep an eye out for the Lions to bring back a Kevin Zeitler, a Joel Bitonio, an Elijah Vera Tucker. Keep an eye out on the Commanders. I don't think they're done yet. What linebackers are still available now, chat? Off-ball linebackers. That was a position of need for the Commanders. I'm worried they're not going to be able to fill it. But yeah, like and subscribe on YouTube, man. That's day 1 of free agency in the books. Those are some winners and losers. I'll talk to you guys later. If you made it this far, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you thumbs up the video. I love you guys. I'll talk to you guys later.